live pictures of the conditions near Houston if we can. All right, we don't have those pictures for you now, but you can see the pictures that we got overnight, certainly showing what residents in Texas are facing. There are more than 1 million customers also without power right now, so keep that in mind. That's a challenge as well for residents. So joining us right now, we've got reporter Katie Beryl on Fox Weather in one of the harder hit cities of Galveston, and it looks like conditions are still pretty treacherous this morning, Katie.
Yes, good morning, Claudine. We have really low signal out here because power is out for at least half of the island of Galveston. We've seen the rain die down a bit, but we still have strong winds here, gusting at least 70 miles per hour for the last 3 hours straight. When you look behind me, you can see the Gulf. We watched it breach the seawall for a number of hours early this morning. Waves crashing over, flooding the main road here. You can still see some of that water. Looks kind of like mist with that wind pushing it across the main boulevard here. We've seen this lead to flooding along the main road, but also in nearby buildings, including our hotel. We know tragically one man died in Harris County, Texas, where Houston is this morning. He was at home with his family during the storm when a tree fell on his roof and he got trapped under debris. We also know rising water led to rescues in Rosenberg, about an hour southwest of Houston. Houston's really getting the brunt of the storm right now as we speak. There's water, though, everywhere in the lobby downstairs of this hotel here. Staff believe it's a combination of storm surge and rain, which has been coming down nonstop for hours straight. The wind's been howling, and people didn't get much sleep last night because our power went out around 2 o'clock in the morning local time. I checked the thermostat shortly after, within the hour, and it had already reached 80 degrees. So some folks are worried about getting through the coming days in the heat without power here, and we've got at least 1 million without power across the whole state of Texas right now.
Yeah, really tough conditions, Katie. And we've talked about how they predicted where this storm would go, and it kept changing past. And a week ago, people expected maybe a very different situation where you are in Galveston. How did that affect preparations for people to kind of prepare for what has come to pass today and in the last 24 hours?
Well, it's interesting where we are in Galveston. We're north of where the hurricane made landfall near Matagorda. So where there were only voluntary evacuations here in this area of Galveston, whereas we saw those mandatory evacuations south of us nearest to where the landfall was. But I think most people that I spoke with here in Galveston, at least, said they've been through storms before, and most didn't plan on leaving. We spoke with people who were in the hardest hit flood-prone area, the west end here of Galveston, where those voluntary evacuation orders were underway. Then most people were just taking in plants, making sure things were tied down outside, and trying to protect their homes from flying debris. But most homes here are raised, so people weren't concerned about flooding impacting their homes. They were just concerned about the power outages and getting out of their homes should they be dealing with flooding as we deal with all of this now. Some of them are even getting kayaks ready to help them get around in the coming days if we're dealing with that flooding lasting a little bit longer.
Yeah, we've seen a couple cars drive behind you kind of on that shoreline as they kind of make their way through the water. When you talk about the storm surge and the wind, how are people getting around, and when does it look like where you are that you'll get a little bit of a break so people can kind of try to figure out how much damage and how much work needs to be done to kind of move on from Beryl?
Yeah, we felt the rain subside a lot, so that's been a really good thing for us because it's improved visibility. Behind me, you can see and make out the waves here. Here we go. We have another car driving through, and that kind of shows you what the water looks like on the road. So it looks like there's a few inches there, at least the stretch that we're nearby. There's a gentleman there probably just taking in the sights, but these are the first times really throughout the morning that we're seeing people out and about. I think that some people are just curious, want to see what's going on, but emergency management officials, of course, are urging people to stay off the roads. I've seen a number of their trucks drive by with a bunch of cones in the back, likely closing roads off where that flooding really makes roads impassable.
And I know you are without power. And any idea of when you've got 1 million people without power and the storm bearing down on when you'll get that power back on?
Well, we know we have a number of linemen staging to deal with these very outages, but you can tell, maybe you can hear the howling wind around me. There's no way that it's safe for them to get up in those buckets right now and start working on the power restoration. So people are likely going to have to wait a little bit longer until we at least watch these conditions move on from us. Up next is Arkansas. They're likely to start feeling Beryl's impacts this afternoon.
Yeah, certainly. A lot of storms still left to go through, and still a lot of hunkering down, as we call it, to be done. All right, Katie Byrne of Fox Weather, thanks so much for that report. Stay safe. Hope you get your power back.